I've said this before earlier in the interview, but I can't emphasize enough learning to use different voices depending on who you're speaking to. And it really comes down to listener empathy, is having empathy with the person you're talking to and being able to put yourself in their shoes and devise the way you're going to speak to them from the understanding you assume they have. It'll get you through a lot of problems if you can take a step back and don't worry about what you know, think about what they know.
Oh, I consider your audience, when in doubt, be polite and courteous, be respectful of people's time. So try to be, especially in written communication, people have to read things, be concise, and listen.
Listen and learn from the people who already are doing it and who have the experience, and ask questions. And don't be afraid necessarily to question those given assumptions and do some critical thinking of your own and say, well, does that really make sense? And maybe you'll find out that yes, it does, and you'll learn all the reasons why. Or, you'll be the person who actually added value for recognizing that everyone else has been making an assumption that may not be true. If you had to sum it all up, what is most important, and what I look for when I'm trying to hire people, is the ability to think critically.
My advice is, first of all, understanding the product that you're dealing with, right? Because I think if you understand it, you can communicate it clear, right? And then you won't necessarily need to rely on jargon, right? If you can't pick it up, obviously don't use too much jargon, right? If you understand it, you won't need the jargon. I think it's really important to put yourself in the receiver's shoes. You know what I mean? Whoever you're sending it to, think about them and them receiving that. and I think you do those things and you're off to a good start.
Basically, sometimes you read something and it sounds like it's personal and it's not. Or even if it is personal, it doesn't matter because this person is, probably like an advertiser. Even if it's a coworker, if they're insulting or if they're attempting to be insulting, who cares? Because you're just trying to get the job done and you want to leave like at a reasonable hour. When it gets to that point, if you happen to have this sort of thing happen, or when it happened to me, take a deep breath. When you think there's an opportunity to respond in kind, don't do it. It's not worth it. And try to take the high road and kill them with kindness. Because ultimately, again, you're trying to get something. In my case, it's trying to get some materials or get a job or get paid or something, The end result, I think, is having a rapport. But the way you start that is by listening very well. You have to make the first statement or whatever. You gotta serve the ball. Listening to me really just means, sort of like researching, understanding, putting yourself in their shoes even before you even talk to them. It's proven to be the most efficient way of communicating and getting what you want eventually is kind of knowing who you're talking to and then how do you talk to them so that you can then literally talk to them and have a rapport. Bottom line is for me, all this communication, whether it's in person, on a phone, via email, having a rapport, literally a rapport is tantamount as nirvana. Like that's all that I ever want. Just keep it chugging along,
My biggest advice, and I think this is not just for someone in my field, but for any field, is ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask a ton of questions. If someone's irritated by you asking questions, they're find someone else, or there's a challenge with that. Like, just don't be afraid that you don't know something. Ask people. I think that's a huge piece of advice. I've seen a lot of people go wrong here. Don't ever put anything in writing that you don't want someone else to see. Whether it's your parents or your spouse or significant other, your boss, your client, don't ever put it in writing. If you're angry and you want to respond, like take a moment, chill out before you respond. I've seen too many people, like horror stories of, I was mad at my client and I sent an email that was meant to a coworker about my client to the client. I've seen people say things about their boss and send it to their boss. And it's just really damaging. So just if you're upset, especially take a step back, but just think about it. Don't ever put anything in writing. It's always going to be there. People will always be able to find it. If you don't want other people to see it, don't write it down. I think in order to stand out, be a little bit proactive. Don't be afraid to be the person that says, I have an idea. What do you think we should do about this? Do you think I can do something? Or I saw that we won this new piece of business, or that we have a new client, or whatever your situation is. Don't be afraid to be the person to say, hey, I'd like to help out with that in any way I can. I think that is a great way to stand out early in really any industry. I think in mine in particular, networking is really huge. So build a base of people. You're going to start whatever career you're going to start, and you're going to be able to meet a ton of people at that time and stay connected with them in whatever way, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's through social media, whatever way works for you. Build a network of professionals, because you're going to need them throughout your career. And as you change from job to job or industry to industry, it's so helpful to be able to have this huge group of people who support you and stand by you and connect you with other people. And then I think most important is have fun. You don't always have to take work so seriously. Be sure whatever you go and do that you're enjoying it. Get to know the people that you work with. Get to know what they like to do, how they like to spend their time. Enjoy it, have fun.